As I state at the beginning of all my videos, these are not meant to be online lessons. Rather, I've made them to support my books, to clarify, demonstrate, and reinforce the content of those books. All of what I'm showing you in this one is contained in the pages of Essential Latin Styles for the Drum Set. Okay, let's get started. I feel like the samba is a fairly misunderstood style. A lot of people seem to feel like anything with that doom-da-doom-da-doom bass drum is samba, but there's way more to it than that, and there are many different rhythms to the style, not just a beat or two. Samba has become a big part of jazz, and being able to play it properly will definitely take your playing to another level. Many people are familiar with the cross-stick pattern of samba. What people don't usually realize is that there are two halves of this pattern, one that starts on the downbeat and one that starts on the upbeat. Or you can simply look at the rhythm as an upbeat version or a downbeat version. I should mention that in this sense, downbeat and onbeat are the same thing, and upbeat or offbeat are synonymous as well. I'll use them interchangeably. In other words, upbeat meaning one thing and downbeat meaning another thing. Those are not synonymous. Here's the whole thing, the cross stick starting on the downbeat. I'll keep the tempo not too fast so you can more easily see and hear the difference between the downbeat oriented samba and the upbeat oriented. We'll get to the faster samba in a minute. All right, here's the downbeat samba. Eighth notes in the right hand, kind of a slow tempo. Downbeat, all right? Now here's the upbeat version. Okay. Now what is not always known is that in Brazil, the phrase will start on the onbeat and then shift to beginning on the offbeat. This is a very subtle thing, but it produces a syncopation that simply staying on the downbeat phrase won't give you. So, again, here's what it sounds like starting on the downbeat. And here's what it sounds like starting on the upbeat. Here's what it sounds like starting on the downbeat, but then shifting to the upbeat. Okay, did you catch that? Let's do it again. Here's another way to do it. All right, that way we didn't really start with the precise all the way through one time downbeat oriented samba. We just kind of transitioned right to that first measure. In the book, you know, there's several ways of showing how to seamlessly do this. And I just played one of them. And sometimes they'll go back and forth between the two. So let's see if you can hear when that happens. Okay. I should mention that this cross stick part is the pattern that the tambourine, or the little single-headed drum, plays. That's what this little guy looks like right here. It's become common to refer to this part as the partido alto, but Really, it's just the part that the tambourine plays in the partito alto style. You know, we're getting kind of hung up in terminology here, but partito alto also has like a different bass part, and there's more to it than just one little part. Sometimes it's also referred to as the Brazilian clave, which, as I mentioned before, I'm not really fond of referring to it in that way. More on that in a moment. Anyway, it's we need to know that it's important to be equally comfortable with both forms. Let me just play the tambourine part, and I'm going to play the bass drum with it. So. As I said, I'm not really fond of referring to this as Brazilian clave because it's hard to get my students at first to understand that Brazilian music and Cuban music are very different things from different cultures and different languages, and in order to play them accurately, we need to embrace the differences, just as Spanish is pronounced very differently from Portuguese. The main thing is to remember is that all dance forms of the world have their defining rhythms, and those rhythms must be understood, you know, to accurately play those styles. The tambourine part does work in some similar ways to clave in that it's a key rhythm to the style, and while it doesn't have a forward and reverse form, it does have two halves that I demonstrated or I talked about a minute ago. If you want to refer to it as Brazilian clave, okay, but be clear that it's a Brazilian thing and it wasn't derived from anything Cuban at all. You know, really, it all comes from Africa through some very circuitous ways. In Brazil, samba is found at a lot of tempos. Outside of Brazil, we usually think of the samba as being pretty up-tempo. And up to now, I've just played the samba with steady eights in the right hand at a pretty slow tempo. But let's look at a couple ways to speed it up. Outside of Brazil, and especially in the United States, when we want to play a fast samba, we use a ride cymbal pattern adapted from an up-tempo jazz cymbal pattern like this. So here's the jazz ride pattern. All right, so we can add the cross stick. Now that sounds pretty good, not bad. But in Brazil, the drummers are not interested in adapting an American drumming pattern to the samba. Their way is to drop a note out here and there, resulting in a pattern that reinforces the syncopation of the cross stick, whatever it's playing. So here's what that sounds like. And here's the upbeat version. All right, now we're going to do it again, and we're going to integrate the two. We're going to start on the downbeat, and then we're going to shift it to the upbeat. Cool, no? It's all written out in the book, and naturally, as we become more familiar with the music, we'll discover ways of accenting and playing the rhythms on open snare, not just cross stick, for a different texture. So, you know, here's a sample of that. There's another way that the tambourine is played in samba, called the Carreter, or sometimes the virada. In up-tempo samba, it's just as common as the other rhythm I just played, but in carnival parades, it's what is always played. So here's what that sounds like. So, a little out of practice. I need to get with that some more. I was very fortunate to parade in Carnival in 1998. It was a life-altering experience, but more on that later. If you like that rhythm, I'm going to send you to a great video by Vanessa Rodriguez, a fantastic keyboard player, but she plays a mean tambourine also, and she demonstrates it very, very well. So I'll put the link here, or try to remember to do that, but I'll also put it in the notes below the video on YouTube. So here's how we can play that same rhythm on the drum set. It's a sound very much like what we'd find outdoors, a street samba, so to speak. Cool, huh? We can do some bass drum variations too. Let's do that. All right, so there's actually a lot of different variations we can play. So, the street samba. And it really has the character of the street samba, don't you think? It's cool to use some of the, as I said, some of the surdo variations. So maybe we should have a quick demonstration of surdo rhythms. I don't have a mallet with me, so I'm just going to play with a drumstick. It's roughly the dimension of a floor tom, so I'll do it right here. So here we go. The most basic rhythm is just straight up and down. It occurs to me you can't really see the floor tom that well, so I'm gonna do something about that. Okay, so now you should be able to see the floor tom better. So here we go. Notice that I'm just dampening. We don't even have to play one. Just. All right. Now we also can add more notes. And some clicks. And make even more complicated, kind of closer what we would consider a partito alto. So that's the surdo. I'm going to play the street samba again with some bass drum variations. Notice that on the basic bass drum that I'm accenting the middle of the measure on beat 2. And Brazilians consider samba in 2/4, not 4/4. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So there it is with the accent. And we can just leave out 1 altogether. So here we go. All right, so that's a good example of some ways we can change that up and really make it fun. Here's another one that's a completely different thing, where it's called a Samba Batucada, and it's just drums only, no cymbals. Well, we can splash the cymbals. So I'm going to show you how we do that. I'm going to play it kind of slowly. So we're going to play that surdo part, and while we play the left hand part. So here's the surdo part. Notice that I'm pushing the beat of the stick to dampen. And then I play this. Splash the hi-hat. just play the same thing with cross stick and on a smaller tom. Creates a completely different atmosphere. With the bass drum. All right, all that I just played is written out in the book in a section called Other Samba Rhythms. And there are other ways to play samba that are shown also. So as you can see, there are many ways to play samba. It's not just a beat. Just as in other styles of music, we have to have a lot of ways to play something in order to bring the music to life. Otherwise, we just sound like robots. And we're not about that, right? Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video.